Hi guys, my name is Sarah Chernick. I'm a junior nursing major at the university, and I'm just going to go over my outline. So I did pages 1 to 7, which is about a quarter of the first chapter. So the first chapter was an overview of drug use, and they define drug use as a complex mix of behaviors, scientific questions, legal issues, moral dilemmas, etc. So the book also talks about how just because someone uses a drug doesn't mean they're abusing it. And actually, most abusers don't meet requirements to be considered abusing drugs because it's not affecting the relationships and causing problems between family members. Although there was a statistic in the book saying that about 10% of drinkers have problems with their social lives, such as missing work because they're hungover or being unable to drive or being arrested because of DUIs. So it still can affect your life in that way. But for a lot of users, you can't consider it abuse because they're able to function even when using the drug. The book also goes on to talk about marijuana and how marijuana is the most common type of illicit drug. And most people who are using it are recreational or they use it like every day. So it's something that they use socially, like drinking. Um, so then the book does talk about the effects that drugs have on the body. So they're not just having effects on the mind, but they're having effects on our organs as well. So, for example, if you're smoking to relax, you're going to be relaxed, but you also may have a slower reaction time. And then it's the same thing when you become drunk. Yeah, you may feel like really light and happy, but you're also going to have problems with your coordination. You're going to be falling over. So the amount of the drug that someone's doing does matter. The more frequent you're using the drug, the more of the drug you're using it, and depending on how you're taking the drug, whether you're swallowing it, snorting it, smoking it, that all can affect how the drug is going to impact your body. So obviously, if you're taking a higher dose of the drug, there's going to be more drug in your system. So the effects of the drug are going to be increased as opposed to taking less of the drug. And like if you're taking the drug frequently, you may build tolerance to it quicker than someone who's only taking the drug once a month. Right? So then the book also talks about how user history and expectations can affect how the drug affects someone. So people who have used a drug on multiple occasions, even though they may not completely enjoy the drug, they're going to think of their past experience with the drug, and this might make them enjoy the drug more than someone who's new to the drug. Also, a lot of new users have certain expectations for drugs because they've heard it from friends or whatnot. So this can affect how they experience the drug, because if they're convinced that it's going to make them feel a certain way, if alcohol is going to make them feel happy and giggly, then they're more likely to experience these as opposed to not, just because they're convinced that this is what is supposed to happen when they take the drug. Okay, I really enjoyed this part of the book because it talks about how drugs are not good or bad. A lot of the time we look at drugs and we think, oh, like this drug is bad because of what it makes people do. But what we fail to notice is that it's the behaviors we're exhibiting that are causing us to do these drugs. So it's not just the drug that's causing us to be this way. A lot of people who use heroin, like their family members are like, oh, like heroin's so bad, like heroin's causing them to do this, them to do that. But in reality, it's their personality, their dependent personality, that makes them feel the need to use the heroin, which in turn leads to their behavior. So I do think it's a little unfair that we seem to blame the drugs when if we would actually come to reality and realize that part of it is us, I think it would be easier for us to fix the problems of abuse and we can correct the drug related problems that we have. the book then goes on to go into like a little history about drugs. And it says how we were never, probably never, a drug-free society. So we've been using alcohol and plant-derived drugs for thousands and thousands of years. Um, they've been using psychoactive drugs in rituals and in religious practices in early cultures. They believed that an illness was an invasion of an evil spirit. So they used psychoactive drugs to kind of counteract and purify the people and remove these evil spirits. It was also interesting how the book talks about how a role of a priest and a shaman is mostly the same, as opposed to today, it's very different. So I thought that was very interesting. And then again, like in the past, in early cultures, they used a lot of drugs to treat various illnesses. Drugs that are now illicit to us are things that were common for them. All right, and then just the last part of the chapter that I'm covering, it talked about psychoactive drugs and their role in economies and societies. So when I started reading this, I realized just how big of an impact drugs have had on us. And such as in Greece, Turkey, Egypt, Italy, they all used wine and they traded. Tobacco in Europe was important for exploration and trade. The coca plant in Mayan Empire also played a big role in trade and economy. And then the opium trade, which was a very, very big and well-known trade in China that affected a lot of people. So overall, there has been an enormous change developing in the market of legal pharmaceuticals, because now we have vaccines and they're helping us with smallpox and polio and the flu, and they're just the way of life now. We have antibiotics being developed all the time, and they're curing diseases that were once deadly, that were once uncurable. And also a big turning point was birth control. So that was introduced in the 1960s, and that really gave women an opportunity to better their education and follow a career instead of choosing to live at home and raise children. So yeah, and then just the government efforts to limit access to certain drugs deemed dangerous is just another change that we have noticed in society just as time goes on. Okay, so sorry if this was a little rough. This was my first time really doing something like this, but it's an interesting way to really go about the chapter and learn. So I hope this helped a little bit. Again, this is about pages 1 through 7 for chapter 1, drug use and overview.